Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on two main topics, the first of which is the 67th anniversary of the 23rd of July revolution. That is today. Today marks the 67th anniversary. We're also going to be taking a look at the economic file where Egypt's growth hit 5.6% for the fiscal year 2018-2019. But before we do that, let me welcome our distinguished guest, Mrs. Riham Abulanin, the businesswoman. I'd also like to welcome Engineer المجيد Slamah, the economic expert and member of the Egyptian African Exporting Council. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our topic, let's check out this report regarding President Sisi giving a speech marking the anniversary of the 23rd of July revolution, and we'll be right back.
On the eve of the 67th anniversary of the 23rd of July revolution, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stated that the revolution had radically changed the face of life in Egypt. In a speech at a graduation ceremony at the Military Technical College of the Armed Forces, President el-Sisi went on to say that not only had it influenced Egypt, but the revolution also resonated with people from all over the world who desired liberation from colonialism. The head of state paid tribute to late President Gamal Abdel Nasser, whom he credits with having led the 23rd July revolution. President Sisi also paid tribute to late Presidents Anwar al-Sadat and Mohammed Naguib, who struggled alongside many great men to open the door of hope for the people of Egypt. The president noted that the July 23rd revolution's great principles and lofty goals illuminated the history of Egypt, leading to profound transformations within the nation's modern history. He said the July revolution was a precious page in the history of Egypt, as it defended the nation's future and managed to change life in the country, making a radical change in history of modern Egypt. He added that the revolution's impact also reached other people in the world who were looking for freedom and independence. The president also praised the strength of the Egyptian people and how they persevered throughout all the difficult stages experienced in the country. In his speech, President Sisi reiterated that combating terrorism is one of the biggest and most important challenges Egypt has faced. But thanks to the Egyptian armed forces and police, terrorist plots have been foiled. The Sisi added Egypt has also addressed the phenomenon of terrorism through construction and development, which have contributed to providing a good life for all Egyptians.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined now over the phone by Mr. Samaha Abdullah, the managing editor at Al-Ahram newspaper. Mr. Abdullah, can you hear us, sir?
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah, first of all, today marks the 67th anniversary of the July 23rd revolution. How would you compare or signify the impact this revolution had on Egypt's modern history?
This day was 67 years ago, was a turning point not only for Egypt but for the Arab world, Africa, and somehow to the world. When Nasser and his fellows started their action at that day, Egypt was a monarchy. It became a republic. A few years later, Nasser took power and he changed the face of life in Egypt and the Arab world. Before that, we had Arab nationalism as an idea. It was popular somehow, but it became more and more and more popular during Abdel Nasser's era because of his actions and because of his policies in the area. And Egypt became a regional power that could affect all over, that had an effect all over the Arab countries. When we speak about Africa, Nasser became somehow the liberator of Africa. He supported every action was taken by the African people to get independence, and he became the hero in all over African countries. Till this very moment, there are main streets over there that has his name. There are main hospitals, big hospitals, I mean, and other institutions that has his name. And then he played a very important role in the non-alignment movement, and that's what I mean by worldwide. So yes, this is a very significant day, and what has happened the years after was really remarkable, and nobody can deny.
Yes. Mr. Abdullah, we've witnessed over the past few years radical changes in Egypt's history, and the July 23rd revolution also marked quite a turn in Egypt's history. Now, can you draw any similarities or differences between the two transitional periods that Egypt has gone through in 1952 and these past few years?
I believe there are so many similarities. Egypt, after Nasser, as I said earlier, went through dramatic changes. The same thing is happening right now. It might be little difference because what we are focusing on right now is building the country, and the pace of changing the Egypt right now is, I believe, is much higher than it used to be during the first few years of the 52 revolution. But it is the same trend. Nasser wanted to modernize Egypt, and President Sisi right now is trying to do the same. When it comes to the army, yes, Nasser was thinking of a strong army capable of taking care of the Egyptian national security. I think the same thing is going on right now. Thank God we have a great army. God bless. And yes, there are so many similarities, things that I can't deny.
Mm-hmm. Well, President Sisi actually reiterated during his speech yesterday that along with the economic challenges, terrorism has been one of the biggest challenges facing Egypt recently. How far do you feel that we've come through that file so far?
I beg your pardon, I didn't say what is the challenge?
Well, along with the economic challenges, combating terrorism was a big challenge. How far do you think we've come so far in this file?
I think we have done great, and we are doing great. Just compare yourself with the neighboring countries, and you can find out exactly how we were successful to get rid of this evil behavior. Of course, nobody would say that, you know, this behavior will be eliminated 100% in a day or two, because by its nature it doesn't need so many people or doesn't have that many impacts. But I mean, when few people might do a stupid thing here or there, then it is seen as a terrorist action, and then, you know, terrorism is still there. But this is not only in Egypt. The same thing is happening in France, in Europe, in America, in Russia, in China, and everywhere in the world. So this is a global phenomenon, and thank God we are among the countries that you know, didn't go so far. And what has happened in Sinai in the last year, and I mean this huge operation that was taking place over there, the army and the police. They were able to get rid of the you know, most of the people and most of the groups that were taking care over there. Mm-hmm. I mean that were responsible for these actions over there. And yes, I mean, I believe we have done great so far, and during the coming period we will do more till this very bad phenomena is totally eliminated from Egypt.
Mr. Samah Abdullah, the managing editor at Al Ahram newspaper, thank you very much for joining us. Now, Engineer Salama, During the 1952 revolution, post that revolution, and nowadays we're going through our own economic reform program, and during that period after the 23rd of July revolution, we also went through a lot of economic change. Are there any similarities between both, or did the times change that now requires different sort of measures and different practices as opposed to the ones in the 1950s and 60s?
Definitely, yes. Let me go back a little bit before. Egypt started in the 1805, what's called modern Egypt. And at that time, we started to build new Egyptian system completely, both military, economically, politically, and so on. And that was affecting too much the whole world. At that time, the main power was Turkey, and we were really, after a few years, we were trying to replace them. But the world did not accept that, and that's why in the year 1839, there were a big war between the Egyptian army and 5 big powers. Then there were a drop, and we were a little bit quiet until in 1952. We restarted to build ourselves, and we started to build an army. We started to, as what was just announced, we started to be effective all around the area in the Middle East, MENA region, in the African countries. We were pushing liberalization all over, not only in Africa and MENA region, but also in South America and some other countries which started to think differently. And the curve were going up quite quickly. And exactly as what happened before, we were trapped. Before that, 1839, we were trapped in the Mediterranean next to Turkey, and our army was destroyed. And now, in 1967, our army was trapped again, but this time in Sinai, and it was really damaged. But at that time, things were slightly different, so we rebuilt the army quite quickly, and then we recaptured some of the losses happened in 67. We recaptured it in 1973, and accordingly we were able to get our land and some of our reputation and some of our dignity, I would say, shortly. Then, as always, you will never be left alone. You are not allowed to go up easily. You have to take it by really good power and good command. So the curve were a little bit going slowly, if we say. And that's why we started to hear some other countries are growing more economically, and we started to hear about the African, Asian, Southeast Asian small tigers. And in the 90s, we started to hear that Egypt is becoming one of the small tigers, which reflected that we were in the first period, 20 years after the war, we were going up and climbing up very hardly, but climbing up. And then we were affected by others, and curve went down very deeply until, of course, the big point was in 2008, where there were an international crisis, economic-wise, and that was the direct reason of what's happened in 2011 at the beginning. And we started with a new era, with a new government, with a new philosophy. Are there a similarity between what's happening today and what's happening on, or what was happening on 52? Yes. Egypt is trying to go up, and some other big powers all over the world are trying to keep us down. Is it an easy fight? No, it's not an easy fight. It's a very strong fight. don't forget that Egypt, long time ago, was #1 in the world, if they accept it or not. Some people are saying that's very long time, 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, but it is a fact that at one time we were #1. Now we are trying not to be #1, but at least to be a considered member of the world. I believe we had taken some steps. I do not say that we did a perfect. There are always a conflict between different ideas when it comes to economy. Exactly as we are speaking as an engineering. For the engineering, we are saying there are always plus or minus 10%. So someone who loves it and likes it, he will say we could have done better. And someone who is probably facing some problems, he is saying that we did the ideal. And this is the always continuous point. But yes, we are going. Yes, the similarity was there, and we are still, but we have to be very careful because other parties are not going to leave us easily.
Yes. Mrs. Abu, now, before delving into the details of it, being part of the youth and this generation going through this economic reform programs that we're following here, now, as Engineer Slamma said, there are conflicting ideas of how we could be doing, how we're performing, how we should be performing. How would you assess and evaluate the sort of the measures and the challenges and the obstacles that the economy in Egypt has been going through over the past few years? Would you say that it's going well? It could have been much worse, could have been much better? How would you assess everything that's going on right now?
Okay, Egypt already has been in a very critical situation since the revolution, and you cannot just take a part by it and just analyze it and say it's going. It is a whole thing that has to be working together so that you reach the exact result, which is expected from the Egyptian economy to raise. So there is some sectors which we can say that it went very well managed perfectly, especially in the infrastructure of the country. And even when we look at the foreign investment regarding the oil and gas, the tourism is going to follow. All of this is going great. But the problem is that some other sectors has been neglected, especially the SME sector, and how to attract the foreign investment so that we create more jobs and give a space for all of these people to have a contribution in the economy. So this is the only thing that still is not, and even encouraging them for the exporting so that we attract the foreign currency. So I cannot analyze the whole thing, but there's some parts it's doing great, but other parts is very neglected. Unfortunately, these other sectors, keeping it neglected will definitely affect the whole performance of the country. So hopefully that it should be more concentrated in this.
Yes. Well, Engineer Slamma, as Mrs. Abu mentioned, that one of the main things that we should be looking at is the exporting of our products and of our investment and projects. Now, you being a member of the Egyptian African Exporting Council, we've had the measures of limiting the imports coming to Egypt, trying to encourage the exports. How far do you feel such a measure and the exporting of our products has been playing a role in the economic reform program and economic growth so far?
You're coming to the critical subject. I had always said that there has to be a lot of changes regarding the export. When you are going outside Egypt, or at first, when you are inside Egypt, you are playing the rules according to the Egyptian rules. When you are outside, you have to study the international market and play it according to the international rules. The international rules is different. There are a huge limitation on the Egyptian companies for export. As example, to issue a letter of guarantee or a bank guarantee for any project outside, for any exporting projects, according to the Central Bank of Egypt, it has to be covered by certain 1, 2, 3 basics, which is not suitable. If I'm bidding for a project, let us say 100 million US, and I have to submit a bank guarantee of 10%, $10 million. No meaning that I should put in the Egyptian bank here 10 million US dollar blocked to issue an international bank guarantee for the customer. This is pure limitation. And this is the rule. So here again, I'm saying we have to change the philosophy. Mr. Government, if you are interested really in export, we can do it. The Egyptian people can do it. Because in some countries, especially in Africa, we are very welcomed, very welcomed. In a meeting which was held in one country, and we were representing the Egyptian engineering syndicates, and the Prime Minister of this country, and then a special president delegation announced it openly. And the attendees were over 300 engineers from different countries, at least from different countries around the River Nile. And they announced, both of them, where are you, Mr. Egyptian? Why did you leave us for other countries? Unofficially, they put India, China, but officially Israel. So what I'm saying is that you have some countries who like you. They accept you. They are interested that you come, but we have to help them.
Yes. Well, Mrs. Abou-El-Ayneen, you've said, we've interviewed you many times, especially about the small and medium enterprises, and we've been talking about the 200 million that has been allocated for SMEs. Now, how far do you feel that Egypt has worked to develop the SMEs? The SMEs, the micro, small and medium enterprises, actually constitute about 80% of the Egyptian workforce, the Egyptian investments and projects here. What still needs to be done to overcome this, all these obstacles and challenges? Is it a wrong choice of projects that the youth and the businessmen are trying to delve into? Is it the market expectations? Is it 200 million maybe are not enough? How do you see the problem?
I guess it is two main things. It's the knowledge and know-how and the skills so that they can develop such things so that they can meet and have their own business. Yes, we have a lot of youth. Yes, we have a lot of, I think we can finance a lot of projects, but still we have the lack of experience and knowledge so that we empower either the youth or the women so that they start their own projects. We only follow the fashionable and the easy way. Now the SMEs are going into the tech industry, although I still have comments about the tech industry. It's like a big bubble. And lacking the strategy or the vision which really the country needs, and it's not been working. And even in the investment ministry, they have this kind of shirketak fikretak, for example. Only they concentrated in such industry of the technology, fintech, but they neglected the other project which can help in job creation, which is the industry and creating factories, especially that already. They have created a number of free zones so that they can facilitate having more factories. But when you go into what is really happening, it's not available at all. There is no, I cannot see a number of factories open. I cannot see even the R&D army that can help these factories so that they develop more creative and innovative products. So it is a huge mistake, and that a huge opportunity lost the last few years.
Yes, well, if we're talking about the know-how and the expertise, now, is this up to the investors, the youth themselves, or is this up to the government? Is it a process of trial and error for the youth? Should there be an R&D department within the government, within the central bank, for instance, or is it up to the individual efforts by the potential investors?
I guess it's the responsibility of the whole ecosystem, Hani. Yani from the government that they have, yani for example, if you look at my case, for example, when I was in 2006, I have no clue about the factory I'm working on, but there was at that time the IMC. They played a big role in providing for us the experts, even the machineries. They funded us up to 80% and 90%. The land at that time in the industry, they're giving it in installments. All of this I cannot see it now. So I wish that this kind of activities is back again. Even at that time, I brought laborers working for our factory, and they were trained by a funded authority at that time. I wonder where is all of this now? Yani, we've got a lot of funds, we've got a lot of support, and people are giving their hands to help us. So why we are not making use of this? Why we only go into the they say it is easy, but actually I see it's only a bubble, yani, about the technology industry. Yes, it's great. I'm not saying it's not important, but what does the country want?
Yes. Well, Engineer Salama, you've said that Egypt is more than capable of actually exporting to different countries around the world. Now, are we talking about exporting final, finished, furbished products, or are we talking about raw materials to be exported, or at least half finished products? Are we capable of exporting fully international standards based products?
Yes. At first, let me and I'm going to complete what is Mrs. Abolainen started. What happened? And let me go back to a little bit of a joke. During the era of President Nasser, he started by saying that all days were bad. So they decided that because of Kulthum, the singer, the big singer, is from the old days, they stopped her from going on to broadcasting until he knew through some friends, and she came back, and she became, at that time, or after that time, she became the big Kulthum. Yes. What happened here, when we started the 8 years ago change, we started to stop the old workshops, the old industries, because they are bad. Big companies like iron steel, like aluminium, like copper company, they did not put, the government decided that it did not put any money into it. Then about 4,000 small and medium size factories were closed down. When the new idea of investing 200 billion or 200 billion or million, whatever it is, Egyptian pounds into small and medium and micro size factories, they closed the old ones and we are restarting. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. You develop and then start new. So we have a total package. But do not stop the old because it is old. Not because I'm old. That's another story. But I had some discussion about that with some bank people, bank figures. And they say that they tried, but some of those 4,000 factories or workshops did not have a good record with banks. And that's why we are starting new people. That's wrong analysis. You have to check even one by one. If 100 is bad, then work on the other 3,000 plus. If 1,000 is bad, you still have 3,000. And in this case, I can reply. If we do that, I can reply and say, yes, we can export a fully final product. Okay?
Yes.
In going back, when we were having something of that kind, we were able to deliver. You have, as an Egyptian, manufacturing, exporting organizations. You have a customer which is over 1 billion person you can serve. This is the number of people in MENA, which is Middle East and North Africa, and which is a good part of Africa, excluding the south part, which is controlled actually by South Africa. But apart from that, we can go there. We have a lot of advantage. In reply to your word, do we have advantages? Yes, we have an advantage. Our technology, our know-how, as you are saying, and Mrs. Abulainin is saying, we have a know-how which is more close to the African market than when you bring the Americans and Europeans and Japs.
Yes.
And that's why the main competitor for you in Africa are the Chinese, but they are strong economically, and their banking system, their financing side is supporting them much more than what our financing and banking system is supporting us.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously there's still a lot more to talk about now. Egypt has reported an economic growth of 5.6% for the fiscal year 2018-2019. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt's economy achieved positive results during the 2018-19 fiscal year with a growth of 5.6% and a surplus for the first time in the state budget. This is the highest growth rate achieved in years and one of the highest in the world, with the country aiming to achieve a 6% economic growth in the ongoing fiscal year 2019-20. In July, the government applied the latest round of fuel subsidy cuts, increasing its prices between 16% and 30% as a necessary measure in an economic reform program supported by a $12 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund. Meanwhile, the World Bank issued an economic monitoring report on Egypt, which said that the country's economic reforms are a step towards achieving economic stability and restoring trust in the economy. The report said the reforms, especially the legislative ones, had led to an improvement in the business climate and are attracting private investments. It noted that the pillars of the upcoming phase of the economic reforms are achieving macroeconomic stability, offering more private sector partnership in the economy, creating more job vacancies and improving living standards. According to the report, the economic reform program makes investments and exports the essential engines for economic growth instead of consumption. Egypt's economy has grown by 5.3% in 2017-18 compared to 4.2% in the fiscal year 2016-17, with an average growth rate of 3.5% from 2013 to 2016.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Mrs. Abulainin, you said that the majority of the SMEs are mainly heading into the big bubble of the tech industries. Now, what about the other sectors, the other industries, the energy sector, the hardware sort of industries, why are people not delving into that? Should that be some sort of a main priority for the banking system, for the government, for the Egyptian Central Bank? Why are people not endeavoring into new territories apart from the tech industries?
I think that they are not aware. Let's take about the youth or the women. They are not aware of what is, they have some kind of communication message that is delivered to them that, okay, if you make a tech and it will be acquired in a few years and you will be a billionaire. If you are into this cupcakes business, you will be doing great. So they are not educated about the business opportunities. There is many, and even they are not even aware of what is the adding value for every sector that they can do. They are not aware about the process of the exporting, how to get customers. So for them, they see the students see that all of them are going to the propaganda of making the technology, and then they acquired, and you will be. So it's all a big bubble. I guess if you started to make the same communication strategy and highlighting the opportunities that can be there for the other sectors, I think it will be great. And I think this is the role of the Ministry of Investment, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, that they start communicating through the media about for example, the investment map. Where is the marketing for such thing? And it's already there, by the way. We are not talking something about something you will do it from the scratch. Already there is a lot of efforts has been done in this. There is a lot of workshops, and there is a lot of experts already there has been working in the export industry and in the industry. So only start communicating this and do the same propaganda which you do in the tech industry for the other sectors, so that it can benefit the country. Yes. So it's very important. It's extremely important. I think that this is what we want in the whole sector, the agriculture sector, the petrochemicals. The petrochemicals, there's many things. You can go into the minerals in Egypt. The minerals, instead of exporting the minerals as it is, you can do a lot of adding value it and start doing it. I'm not again saying that the technology industry is not important in the country. It's very important. However, it's connecting the whole requirement of the investment, and of course at last it will benefit the whole country.
Yes, most definitely. Well, Engineer Salama, you've mentioned the whole concept of out with the old and let's just focus on the new, and that there were many sort of projects and investments that were sort of let go or pushed on the side. Now we've seen that after the 2011 revolution, a lot of factories have shut down. Even the few that came back to operation, they were not at 100% full capacity. Now, how can we actually change that? Because there are still some factories that are shut down, and still some factories are not 100% fully operational. Now, how can we actually get these industries and these factories to work 100% full capacity, and in turn increase the exports, increase the products, create more opportunities for small and medium enterprises?
Right. At first, I'm a little bit conservative on the word, on your word, some. It's not some, it's many. Many factories are not in operation, many factories are not fully loaded completely. My idea, which is coming to what Mrs. Abulanin was saying, that we are speaking about high-tech and new technology, and I think this is coming from some countries like India, where India is known now to be the big shark of the software programming and the IT and all that. But this is not a defined or clear statement, because India, in the same time when they were developing the IT technology, they were also developing the heavy industries. No country Egypt will not be built or progressing until we go to the heavy industry. And according to the heavy industry and progress, the whole economy will go. India is now producing aeroplanes, is now producing heavy machinery, is now producing, in the same time, technology, IT, all that. So if we have to go back to heavy industry plus the new tech to develop. I remember, very simple, because my background is electronics and automation and all that. So I do remember that at one time we were speaking about developing factories for higher production. But when we started the new era and factory is closed, so when I was discussing with a factory owner, he said, I do not have anything to produce to try to increase the efficiency. So the main idea is that heavy industry is the major element, and the heavy industry as a major element is going to pull all the others. The iTech is working for other industries. You do not make a software just for the sake of software, but you are making software and development of the iTech to develop the other existing industry. And instead of you are producing 100 and you need 120, you are developing this iTech to increase the production from 100 to 120. And without the heavy industry, you have nothing. As
which
example,
includes steel and copper.
And let me just put some figures. Iron Steel Company in Helwan, which is the only company, was producing the billets of steel and feeding the industry at the maximum. When they were full capacity, they were employing about 30,000 people. But the number of small factories and workshops, depending on them, was around 750. So it was 5% and serving 95%. Now, you close that, you closed at least 60–70% of it, because some of them are large enough to have an alternatives, but the majority are closed. So, in summary, yes, iTech is a wonderful, very useful, but it has to go with others. By the way, I'm not involved in iron and steel. This is very clearly, this is not in my industry.
One final question, because we are running out of time, Mrs. Abou-El-Enein. Now, do you feel that everyone wants to start their own business, their own projects and investments? Would you say that it would be a good idea for people not just to start businesses and ideas from scratch, but it would be a good option to also start businesses associated to the already existing industries, the already existing projects, as some sort of a branch that would be, in a way, serving the bigger projects and bigger industries, and at the same time, you have your own thing going on?
It depends on the project itself, Hani. Yani every case by case. But yes, some would work like this, the business model would work like this, and some no, you have to be innovative enough. So everything has its own case.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, obviously 5.6% growth for the 2018-2019 fiscal year is a good report, and hopefully a better forecast for the next few years. But as my distinguished guests have mentioned, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank our very distinguished guest, Mrs. Rehem Abou-El-Enein, the business woman. I'd also like to thank very much Engineer Abdelmegid Salama, member of the Egyptian African Exporting Council and our economic expert. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Night International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.